Yeah, but there's one thing that I pointed out that was greatly surprising to me. You know what that was?
Let us hear.
All machine brands were represented with really nice booths in this small trade show. That's telling me one thing. People are buying die casting machines in the US. Then you can do your own conclusion out of that, but it's quite interesting to see that you have the Yuzumis, the LKs, the IRA people, and the Bühlers, of course, and then a few others that I, by ignorance, doesn't know. ITN as well. And if you're bringing in a die casting machine for show, that some of them did, or having these booths, they take it really serious, and that must mean that there's still there's a growth in the North American market.
Yeah, I think the vibes that you get is that the industry is more positive in North America compared to Europe.
Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Goldcasting Podcast. Today we make a big jump above the pond towards the US, and the NADCA show just happened. We have Stefan and Per that were at the NADCA show, and I'm gonna grill them how it was, what were the main topics, and the subtle differences between Europe and the US. So welcome Stefan, welcome Per.
Thank you.
So I'm a guest today, huh?
Yeah, you have a double role, guest and host, as I wasn't there. So, like all the other viewers and listeners,
I
have the same experience as them, but you two have been at the NADCA show. How was it?
Oh, I think we should ask Per this. And for those who still don't know who Per Jansson is the founder and owner of Contact Rio Casting, deal with semi-solid casting. So we have that in place also. Okay, so fire away, Per. How was the trade fair?
For us, it was a big success, I would say. Rio casting is very much on the ropes in North America, I would say. I think a lot of topics around the show was about Rio casting, meaning that simulations, etc., is that working with Rio casting, and so on. So it's not just the actual process; it's all the surrounding technologies also. And I would say that the Americans are eager to get started. That's my take back, so to say. Compared to Europe, I would say America is on the forefront.
I actually have the same view. And I find it a little bit surprising that the questions from the American audience, I mean, first of all, to put it in perspective, our biggest, most interesting markets is actually US and Japan, not Europe, as you could think, as we're being European. But I find the discussion in the US less complicated. I mean, come on, if you look at it, we have more OEM customers wanting castings in Rio casting, and they don't see a problem going through the verification in the same way as in Europe. And also we have the first Rio casting stations operative on American soil, meaning the Spartans. So the Spartans were actually co-siting with us. And I think that was luck, because we were three of us, and then we had two guys from Spartan, and it still was filled with a queue. That tells you something.
I think that was a fantastic mix, because we were there as the equipment producer and technology provider, and Spartan were there as a user and a component supplier, which means that let's say end customers or product owners could have the picture of the process from two directions, so to say.
Yep.
And I think that increased the credibility as well, because then it's for real, if I say like that.
And how were the discussions like? Is it that, like, we heard now the both sides, but now we have to involve all the other departments? Or is it something like, great technology, what are the advantages, how can we use that?
No, it was more, we have this part, it has been discussed, we have checked this out, and then sometimes we have an NDA, sometimes we don't, but it is less complicated, more direct.
More straightforward, if I say like that.
Yeah, definitely. Surprising me, a great deal was that, we work A380. And we had several founders coming in and say, hey, then it's not a problem. Then I can just start to cast. In Europe, it goes like, yeah, okay, 226. I need to talk to my customer first because this is a new process step. I don't think the Americans see the problem of having a melt preparation process between the furnace and the die casting machine in the same way as we do in Europe. We maybe in Europe, we like to problematize a little bit more.
So you think more in Europe, the problem is more important than the solution? Because having a problem, then you're one of all the other foundries that are complaining about their problems. But if you solve them, then you're out. You have a great P&L, but you cannot complain.
Yeah, I guess you see it from the outside as well. You being a tax refugee in Switzerland nowadays. I mean, then can you give a perspective of Germany? I guess. Yeah, maybe. But we have to realize one thing: the American population. I guess I'm stepping on some toes now. I used to say that there's no one better to get out of problems than an American organization or a company, if you like. But there's also, in the same time, no one that is so good in getting into problems that an American organization or a company. So, I mean, they go a little bit more like this, and maybe in Europe we're a little bit stable. But on a serious note, what I feel when I discuss with them is that they have had a China threat for ages. You have to remember that U.S. has exported $3 trillion the last 20 years of production to China. So when we're whining in Europe now that Chinese foundries are entering our dear continent, this has been the case for quite a long time in the U.S. because they just took the whole platform from China over the sea. So they're used to this environment and they're trying to fight back with whatever they have and whatever they can. I think I found them more, how should I say, less naive or less waiting for the government, more up to themselves to actually solve some problems. I don't know if you agree, Per.
I would say they are very much solution oriented, I would say. And if this give them some advantage in their application that they are producing, I think they are quicker on the ball, if I say like that, than other organizations.
I agree.
And that is their strength, I would say.
Interesting. What is also visible at the booth that you'd have just seen American brands or brands that are established in the American market and no Chinese brands?
Yeah, let's say like this. We had, I think we had visitors from outside of North America. I would say Australia. We had people from Taiwan, Asia, and quite a number of Indians actually, but it wasn't not so many Mexican people there, which I thought would have been more. I mean, in Europe, if you compare with Eurogus, which is much larger, of course, and which has also a much larger organization behind who handle the show, so to say, and. So that for me was a little bit. I thought it would have been more Mexicans, but I guess Eurogus has their own exhibition in Mexico as well. So
yeah, I think they're waiting for that one. Then I must give a hint if someone is thinking in Europe now that let's participate in NADCA Show. It is pretty small.
Yeah,
it's interesting that you actually gathered that interest from the industry. I mean, we were pretty occupied for 3 days, but I don't know, Per, it is less than hall 7 at the Eurogas.
Yeah, it was just one hall, but let's say all the exhibitors were relevant to the high pressure die casting industry, I would say, and it was just focus on that. So that made also that all visitors were also relevant, meaning very not so much industrial tourism, if I say like that. Which you can
we
see
still have some candy left.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if it was so much smaller than the other exhibitions, was there also the possibility with that familiarity to have a more of an exchange with the other booths?
Yeah.
Because at the Eurogas it's so large and just going to another booth takes you ages.
No booth took longer than 5 minutes to walk to, if I say like that. So
I mean, we had actually a couple of more or less spontaneous meetings between plasma guys, vacuum guys. You just gather around and you have a cup of coffee somewhere in some corner and discuss to move forward. And if you do that in your gas, I don't have any sense of orientation. Then I need a map or someone following me together. The 5 guys from Hall 7 and us from Hall 6, and it takes 50 minutes to just walk there. I think this little bit more.
Yeah, but there were no foundries as exhibitors. It was only the suppliers to the foundries.
Yeah, you have
basically.
A few Asian foundries. That was
perhaps a few.
2-3 of them, max. Yeah.
But then it was mostly suppliers of equipment to the high pressure die casting process, if I say like that.
But you know what? I think that comes from the concept of service. I think the critical thing in the US is to have a great service. I mean, the whole nation relies on service and tipping in restaurants. But you see my point, that most of the guys that were there were actually servicing on a very local level, meaning if you have a foundry, they could actually show up with very short notice. And this is something that Americans pay for. For them, it's more natural. If you say in Europe that, then we have a service package, everybody go, oh no, why?
Yeah, Americans are world champions in service, if I say like that.
They serve you a tacky burger with a smile just to get those $3 a tip.
Yeah. Did you actually know where now these 20% tip bars come from?
No.
It's not within the tipping culture. It's just one company do the payment processing, thought how to increase the revenue. Oh, we increase the tips, then our revenue share is bigger. And that's why it's now you see these 15, 20, 25% tips everywhere.
That is so typical American, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right? But it was a great trip, I would say, and I'm pretty happy. You actually forgot to mention also, Per, that we have a number of Japanese companies over there. And again, here comes another thing from my perspective about Americans being used to the Chinese people and all that. The Japanese companies, they are also on American soil. They also need to have service locally. They also develop parts in there. So I mean, there are quite a number of parts that are actually being developed for Japanese companies in the US. And I find that interesting. Because ultimately they will be casted in North America. And we will see the same trend here in Europe, believe me. When we have a couple of others coming in, we know the BYD. I bet my head that we will see NIO coming into Europe also this year because they're pretty successful. Maybe Seeker or whoever. And you'll see that, sooner or later they will start to develop parts also in Europe for the European market. I think so. That's my strong belief. Question is it next week or is it in 5 years?
We will see. They're just building up their plants in Europe. But I think nearshoring has a long history within the North American market, that you see a lot of brands moving into Mexico, for example, to produce and deliver into the NAFTA market. Did you see any great news for the foundry worlds? Any new technologies that you've seen for the first time?
It would be if I look myself in the mirror.
Yeah, I can agree. I would say that it was similar type of suppliers that you see in Eurogoods, if you look at the international base, so to say. And then, of course, there were local companies that perhaps more from alloys and furnaces and things like that. But on the big technology, I would say it's the same type of custom suppliers that are in Eurogoods and all the other exhibitions like this. So there's nothing new under the sun there, really.
Yeah, but there's one thing that I pointed out that was greatly surprising to me. You know what that was?
Let us hear.
All machine brands were represented with really nice booths in this small trade show. That's telling me one thing. People are buying die casting machines in the US. Then you can do your own conclusion out of that, but it's quite interesting to see that you have the Yuzumis, the LKs, the IRA people, and the Bühlers, of course, and then a few others that I, by ignorance, doesn't know. ITN as well. And if you're bringing in a die casting machine for show, that some of them did, or having these booths, they take it really serious, and that must mean that there's still there's a growth in the North American market.
Yeah, I think the vibes that you get is that the industry is more positive in North America compared to Europe. No, I think that the die casting companies look much more positive on the market than the die casting suppliers do here in Europe. I think they foresee a growth, and it's totally different positivism when you talk to people and so on. It's not totally black and everything is bad and so on and so on. So I think it's a different situation over there compared to where we have in Europe.
Is there also more of an openness? As I heard it from the introduction from the exhibition, that they were easy to talk. So are they also more open to new technologies to level up?
Yeah, they were curious and asking. I mean, we had a booth neighbor in a guy running a booth, a tool maker, aisle, and then he had to run over and see what exciting things we were doing, because there have been people in your booth all day, he said. So I mean, it's fantastic how they approach new technology and are interested and want to learn, and with open eyes. I mean, it seems that the interests are really there.
You have to also remember another thing. I was speaking about the service as a thing that differs between US and Europe. One thing I have learned back in the days is that a failure in the US is not considered to be that catastrophe for your career. I can take an example. It was a governmental research in Sweden where they looked at people going bankrupt in different countries. PhD, and it turns out that in the US people go like, oh, bad luck, hope it goes better next time. In Europe, or I don't know, but in Sweden, if you go bankrupt, you are like, ooh, really? Then I don't know if I can drink beer with you anymore. People are a little bit scared of failures. So I think this is one of the things also for us being technology providers, that okay, there's a lot of money, there's a lot of hours. If it fails, at least we tried. And in Europe, we go, it's a lot of hours, it's a lot of money, it must be successful from day one. And I think this is a big difference. I don't know if you would like to comment on that, Per.
I can comment on that. I don't know which exhibition, I talked also with an American guy, and he told me he tried to introduce some new trials and new alloys, and it failed completely. And I said, okay, now I have to go to my boss, and I'm getting fired. And he goes there and said, hey, that happened. And yeah, you're gonna fire me. The boss said, of course not. I just invested 100,000 in your learnings. Now keep that ROI going.
Yeah.
But please be a little bit careful and just waste 50,000 next time.
Yeah. But I think
if I bring in a new guy, then I have to invest another 100,000 for his mistakes. You made so many already.
Maybe we should employ him.
But even if it's fun, I mean, a little bit, but that could summarize the attitude towards new technologies and new things. They're more open. What if this is the big thing? And what if I am not there then? Then I'm going to fail. But if I'm there and it succeeds, then I'm in the game, so to say.
I think that's a strong point.
I mean, it's basically like if you play football, you can have two tactics. One tactic is to score most goals, or one tactic can be to not let in most goals.
Yeah, nobody wants to watch the Chelsea of the football clubs just parking the bus before the goal.
I mean, it's two approaches to achieve the same goal, so to say.
But the general theme, I think it was well invested time and money, and besides some lovely steaks and French fries that we've been living for 4 days, it was a great trade show, and I can strongly recommend it. As long as you remember, it's a small show, but you see everybody there, and you have a good window towards the market in terms of the OEMs, I would say. Not only American, you see Japanese or others also walking by you. So it's a good meeting place, I would say.
Yeah, and they also had great sessions as well with different focus area with good presentations and so on. So
one fact I would like to get your comment on, as the NADCA show is, like from the name North American Die Casting Association, is that it's not an exhibition management company It's the die casting organization itself organizing it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you see the input there that it is organized by people coming from the industry in comparison to other exhibitions around the world?
I would say like this, and now I'm stepping on other toes in the US. I mean, it's more tacky. It's simpler, but it's also making it simpler for you as an exhibitor. But it has a great heart. Let me put it that way. I mean, they summon great guys doing lectures. It was quite an impressive program they had with papers, you know.
Yeah.
And if I compare going to a scientific conference in Europe, that's also super interesting. But these are more hands-on. It's like, okay, we did like this for the spraying of this because we had a problem in this, and then you do some sort of a white paper. It would never pass the qualification going into a scientific paper, but they're really good. And again, if I should summarize the difference between the more professional Guess Who and also this one, I would say more heart and more actually what the guys needed to hear. I found that interesting.
Yeah, I think to summarize, I mean, it's at least for us a great first time we went to NADCA as an exhibitor. And I would say that my takebacks is that the American or North American market is actually moving quite fast forward. They are open to new technologies, and basically the attitude of the Americans is that it's very difficult to break your way up for an uphill, so to say. And they actually, you just need to put the throttle down and go forward.
Oh, that sounds great. But isn't that what we need in Europe? A foundry organization that has heart in the topic and showing a positive attitude for the industry.
Yeah, of course, that's what they are there for. I mean, to support the members of their different organizations and so on, and help them. I think that's one of the tasks of each casting organization.
I think the European casting organization, I'm speculating, and if someone is listening getting angry with me, please call me. I think they have lost the perspective. They have always been doing a great job looking way down the road, many years, you know, working with universities and what have you. But now the times are changing that fast. It is going super fast. I mean, when did we hear about Chinese car makers going to Europe? I mean, it's 2 years ago. And I come from a country called Sweden, and we had a great company, Ericsson, doing cell phones. And on the stage comes Apple. And they wipe out Ericsson's cell phone production development, or Ericsson as a company in cell phones, in 24 months. Yeah. I'm not saying it's going to be this far, but what I'm saying is that this is that happens. So you get this disruptive changeover in the industry. And if you look what the EVs are doing to us, with all the companies coming to Europe, and you have the trade war, China, US, and all these things. And then if you still are focusing on what's happening foundry technology-wise in 5 years, you're missing the point. Now it's about survival. Now it is about totally different things, getting the right people, getting the right technology, supporting your OEM and all that. The problem is, I think that many people within the OEMs are still also in this perspective. So that's why Europe is lagging. Could be one reason, just speculating now. But I think it could be a reason. We have lost the perspective and we cannot change over from 5-year plans to 1-year plans. That's a problem.
Yeah, also it's a change of field. It's from a technical field, how to do a better alloy, a better spraying, into how to do a better a business development, which is a totally different discipline.
So if you look at this horse race, and we're the middle horse, and we look to the left from Sweden, and you see the US, they're happy to try everything that's new and doing it that way. And then you look to the right and see Chinese companies. They're happy to do 15 version of rear floor until they find the right recipe. Something they can do, something with a good spec that helps the car maker. And then we're looking at us that say, we're going to make the perfect solution for this, so we invest 3-4 more years into it. What happens on the car market in 3-4 years? We already see that European car making is going down. It's half from 2022 to now. I mean, come on, guys. We lost every second car produced in Europe. We have lost. Are people not driving cars anymore? Or did I miss something?
You're on to something that we approach a problem differently, perhaps compared to how other markets are approaching the same problem, so to say. But I think that is one of the strongholds from China. I mean, they can do 2-3 samples or tests, and we are still talking. I think that the development processes in China compared to Europe is so much faster. And that is perhaps also a little bit in our approach to it. I mean, we can't fail when we do approach a problem. We have to be smack on the first time. While in China, they can do both first trial, second trial, and 3 times. And they don't hit it right until the 4th time. And the question is, what have they learned in trial 1, 2, and 3 before they do it right? And to do that in one trial from a European perspective is, of course, much bigger challenge.
Also, when you take out, you have 4 trials, 4 times the possibility to try something. Each of them, if you have to do them virtually in a simulation or in meetings, that takes a year that you get some piece of information or guideline together just by looking at simulations and talking about them. In that way, they already did a 3rd trial and are 3 years ahead.
Yeah, but I think the secret lies in what you actually learn during the trials. You think that you are trying to expand, for example, the flow length to reach a certain design. I bet my index finger on this, that they learned things that they were unaware could cause a problem and solve it during the way. It could be, what kind of spray system do you need for doing this? How does this alloy actually behave during solidification in the towers and blah, blah, blah. I think they identify problems that they were unaware of, and they can also sort them while going forward. So if we could look at how they did the first trial and how they did the number 5, in all parameters, we will see great changeover in things that no one knew was a problem before. And I think this is the strength of having this kind of development. Identifying unknown problems and solve them. Because otherwise you do one shot and you're perfect in some sense, but then you should start production, for example, and then it shows up that you have other problems in the shot sleeve or lubrication or whatever it is.
Yeah, casting is so very complex, especially when we talk about these big parts. So I think it's very difficult to get all the parameters that actually affect the end result in simulations and assumptions and feasibility studies. You can't really see that until you have made your first trial, actually.
No, not really. Anyway, on a more personal note, you asked about the difference between Eurogas and a NADCA show. Me as a hunter love to be at the NADCA show because the baseball caps has camouflage pattern all over it, you know. So for me, wearing out a few of those every year, and if you go in there, I can also give you a hint that my very unscientific examination of the NADCA show is that every second guy is a hunter. Very nice place to be. So if you need a couple of camouflage hat caps, go to the NADCA show. You will bring home a few of those, and they're happy to give it away as long as you share some stories around the hunting or fishing or something. I haven't seen that one in Eurogas.
No, definitely there were probably more guns at Indianapolis than in Nuremberg.
Yeah, I can just agree to that statement. But that's the way the American
So to summarize
is.
that, the NADCA show is worth the trip every time because it's small, it's all a familiar environment, and you get the chance to talk to everyone and meet people. And also, especially when you're coming from Europe, it's also a trip to have a mindset change, as it's way more open and you can learn more things than about the latest news in casting.
Yeah. It gives you a perspective.
Exactly. You get the perspective.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I think then we have a shorter episode this time, and then we see us in the next Gold Nugget again. Thank you, Per, for reporting.
Thank you very much for having me.
Of course. And then see you in 2 weeks.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.